This came from Barb, and Barb emailed. I don't know what time the podcast launched last week, but it was in the morning. I got this email from Barb, and she said, "Hey Dan, last week you talked about, or on your podcast this week, you talked about the 3 C's of marketing, and I completely understand consistency and customer, but not sure about my content. Can you share some tips on creating good content for a women's boutique? P.S. I'm a mixtape mom." So
there we go.
Let's take a jump backwards.
Rocking the 80s tape.
Yeah. Zulily did a study of its audiences and recategorized their consumers in 3 ways: a TikTok mom, a Facebook mom, and a mixtape mom. 24 to 34, 34 to 44, 44 to 54. And this happened to be a mixtape mom. And I said, good on you, I'm a mixtape dad. So let's chat. So, as I told Barb, I am not a marketing guru. I know just enough to be dangerous. And what I've learned comes from being surrounded by really good marketers. And when it comes to content, Rob, it just so happens, we've got this guy that's all about content on the cast with us today. And so Rob's going to share. I'm going to ask Rob to weigh in on some of this as well. But for me, content comes from 3 sources. It's your who, your why, and your what. Who you are, who your team is, and who your brand is. Why you do what you do, why you buy what you buy, and why she should buy from you. Now, this is not, your connection to her is that why. It can't be about pricing. That's not why she's buying from you. It cannot be about price. And then we have the what. And the what is all about your inventory. And there are 3 sources to draw from in inventory. Number 1 is new arrivals. And new arrivals should be showcased with style sessions, live or recorded, poses, and lastly, and definitely the least important, is a flat lay. If you're not or don't have a model that you can do a live style session or snap some images, snap some photos, then go ahead and do a flat lay. Something's better than nothing when it comes to showcasing that inventory. So that's your new product. Number 2 is the sources where you have an overage in inventory, where you're bought very deep or you're holding a lot as you move through a season. This product needs to be highlighted to be moved, and you've got to continuously showcase it. Don't think about, I have nothing new to show my customer. Remember, if you've got a 20% open rate on your newsletter, that means you've got an 80% unopen rate. If you've got a 20% closing ratio in your store, that means you've got 80% of the people that didn't buy. And remember, people aren't buying because, they're on sensory overload. So continue to show and re-show inventory that you have a glut in or where you're bought deep. You've got to highlight it to move it. And then number 3 is your best sellers, or what you believe or want to showcase as your best sellers. Everybody wants to buy popular items, and you should showcase them that way. So, Rob, what are some other tips for steering content?
Yeah, it's a great question, Barb. You get stuck with what do we do? I'm not sure. And you just laid out a great set of, when it comes to product in the store, that approaches that they can take. I'm going to liken it to your view of store inventory. You talk about the different classifications, that the importance of having that mix in your store when it comes to your inventory. I would offer that it's important to have that mix in your content as well. That it's not just all the same type of content, and to when you break it down that way, it kind of pushes you, the creative challenge, the friction of, okay, I'm gonna every 10th post we want to do something humor driven, just as a something a little bit different, and maybe it's community driven, maybe it's partner driven. things that extend beyond, of course, the mainstay, the products in the store, the service,
Right.
and the team, and all of that. But think of different ways that spreads it out a little bit, that it's not always just that, because there's gonna, you've got your rabid fans. They're right there. They want to know everything that's going on. And then the outer layer and the outer layer. And I tend to think that there's content out there that, reaching out, touch points on different things in your community, or other, bring attention to other
Right.
similar independent businesses that, even whether they compete or don't,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how all of a sudden they're doing some shout outs your way.
Right. And that speaks to who you are. When I say showcase who you are, it is who you are as a person.
Totally.
It's who you are as a member of your community, the things that you support, and you're going to find that your core audience, your rabid fans, have a similar belief system or a similar value system as you do. That's the attraction. And there does need to be attraction. People, have to be attracted to you in your store, attracted to the level of service that you provide. And that's about who you are. And so there does need to be this comfortable blend of who you are, why you do what you do. And that, Rob, can speak to your community initiatives. That can speak to some cause marketing. This month I'm giving a proceeds from sales, or a proceed or a portion of my sales to, the Sturgeon Community Hospital Foundation. That cause is so near to my heart. My mom spent her last days there, or I had my baby there, and the people in that facility are wonderful, and I'm going to support them this way. Well, that starts to pull an audience together. We come together to support that cause. And that's a little bit about, why. And that's the ability for you to say, I'm in this business, in this community, so that I can give back to this community. That's, I give to myself, I fill my bucket up, and the minute my bucket is full, I then start filling up other people's buckets. And when you start to share content like that, who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, you start to gather this loyal following, or you expand the loyal following that you have. Always, always, always last on my list is the what. Nobody cares what you're doing. Yeah. They want to know why you're doing it. They want to know why you bought it. They don't care what you bought. They'd rather know why you bought what you bought than what you bought.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Barb talked about, her classification of being the mixtape mom,
right,
too, and just to maybe end on, within that, creating different classifications of your content, maybe to stretch your comfort as the owner, as the store as a whole, that, okay, we're gonna, once every 2 weeks, we're gonna make a TikTok video. Like we're gonna move into a different, but not worry about that. I've got to be there fully, and
right.
Again, I think creating these little different classifications within the types of content, the channels for the content, and to your point of like, what does that message serve? At least starts in the elements of the plan, and from there, then you work on making it better. Right?
We chatted yesterday. It's funny. One of our clients, a buyer for one of our stores, her name is Jess. She's in Vermont, and she said, "Hey, I just listened to some of your podcasts, and I'm a mixtape mom." I really identified with when I was doing my shopping. With the way that Zulily had sort of aligned up that. And this is part of your content, isn't just what you're putting out. I mean, Barb went on to say that she was consistent. She knew her customer and was looking for, what should I put in my content? Well, I sort of gave her my three, the who, the why, and the what, product, the why I do what I do, and who I am.
Yeah.
But it's just as important to know what silo your customer's fitting in, or what category she fits in, and when you should be posting. This mistake that retailers have of posting at 10 a.m. doesn't give them a lot of analytics. We should be posting at multiple times, throughout the day, throughout the week, and then going back and measuring which one, what was the content, a summary of the content. Was it a live or a still, or what was it? And what was the engagement? Impressions and engagement. We should be looking at the number of impressions and the number of engagement and coming up with, hey, listen, if I get 1,000 impressions, I'm getting 300 engagements. I've got a 30%, engagement rate.
Right on. Well, good luck to you, Barb. And I just start, right? Like, you
start.
work on making it better as you go along, and don't get too hung up on that perfect plan.
I feel like retailers get caught up in, the fear of putting themselves out there, or the fear of doing a live and having an oops, or, fucking something up. Well, guess what? We all will mess up. Every single one of us. And it's not that big a deal. There's no bloopers reel for you to go over. And bloopers, was a #1 show for a reason.
I was gonna say,
puts a smile on people's face.
You literally could take all your oops, put it into one video, and there's another classification of
and it's going to get some views. Yeah. Hey, listen, Barb, thank you so much for sending the question in, and of course allowing me to share the question here on the podcast. Retailers, if you've got a question, you don't have to be as on the ball as Barb and email it 9 minutes after it completes, but just send an email to dan@thewealthyretailer.com. We'll get you an answer to the question. Maybe we'll load it up on the podcast with your permission, and share it, for the greater good of our retail lives, for the greater good of our retail community. And for sure, you got to check out our weekly newsletter over at retailbycrs.com. We'll have copies of all of the articles in this podcast, plus some others that Rob's going to sort of cruise over here right now. And then, get that newsletter every week. There's tons of good stuff there.